Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of the Lived Experiences Revealed. I'm Dr. Tamia Ryan, and today we are reflecting on the journey that we've shared over the past several weeks, and we're diving into something crucial: the power of our stories and how to protect them in a world that's constantly trying to edit them. First, before we jump into that, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for joining me in these past conversations we've had over the past several weeks. Each episode, each comment, each shared perspective has really been a part of something truly meaningful. And as a community of people committed to owning their narratives and creating positive change, I just want to say that you also inspire me. You keep me motivated and you keep me looking forward to how I want my story to evolve. We've covered so much ground together these past few weeks. We started by exploring what it really means to own your narrative, breaking that buzzword down, not just in telling your story, but also how to consciously create it. We dove into patterns that shape our lives, both breaking free from those limiting ones and creating new patterns that stick. So we've moved away from just talking about habits, but how can we create sustainable patterns? We've also examined how our stories can either limit our success or propel us forward, depending on how we frame them. We tackled that familiar not ready story that keeps so many of us waiting for permission to begin, permission that we learned we don't need, right? We've also transformed our relationship with failure, and we've learned how we can turn setbacks into valuable chapters in our overall larger story. As we've uncovered these inherited stories that influence us, often we have learned that we have to be self aware, right? That's that word that keeps coming back: self awareness. Through it all, though, one truth has emerged, and that is that our stories matter. I believe that your story matters. They shape our experiences, they guide our choices, and they connect us to one another. Before we wrap up this series of the lived experiences revealed, I want to share something that's really important on how to protect your narrative. Because as we know, when our story changes and we start to move in a different way, sometimes that can be challenged, right? So, how do you protect your narrative in a world filled of competing stories? Every day, we're bombarded with stories that aren't our own. We have social media telling us what success looks like. We have social media telling us what beauty looks like, right? We have media defining what's desirable. We have society dictating what's acceptable. We have others projecting their fears onto our dreams. So these external narratives can really slowly infiltrate our own if we're not careful. I want to share something personal with you. There was a time when I let other people's doubts and their doubts within their stories become my own, right? And this happens to many of us. That won't work. That's too risky. And maybe that was that individual's limitation on what they believed, right? And then I realized that I was really protecting everyone else's story except my own. Okay. And this happens to all of us. And again, that's why self awareness is so important, because none of us are exempt from feeling the pressure of outside influences. Protecting your narrative isn't about isolation, okay? So it doesn't mean that you just don't talk to anyone or you don't share your dreams or aspirations with others. It's really about creating this intentional creation. It means about being selective about whose opinions you absorb. It's recognizing when someone is projecting their own story onto yours. And it's also meaning creating a space between external inputs and your inner truth. So, what's coming at you and what you truly believe, and learning how to filter that out. And remembering that not every story deserves equal weight in your life. Okay. It's going to vary. Many things, again, are on a continuum. So, here are some ways that you can protect your story. Okay. As you've done all of this work, you want to protect it, right? You want it to be your own. When you feel reactive to someone's input, okay, and sometimes you're going to get input, advice, you're going to get questions. Take a moment and pause and ask, is this story about your truth or is it about theirs? Okay. And then you want to consider the source. We all heard that expression, right? Whose voice are you hearing right now? Are you hearing yours or are you hearing someone else's, right? And what is the value of that individual's voice in your life? You also want to build a community of people who respect your authorship of your own story. Now, that doesn't mean that you have a bunch of yes people around you, right? Because sometimes we do need to be challenged. Sometimes we do need to have those questions asked, right? But that's where it comes of knowing that network that you've built that community within, okay? And that there is that trust there. Trust is so important when you are getting so many things thrown at you. And then creating this sort of shield, right? And this shield does not mean that you're isolating yourself. It just means that you're protecting yourself, right? So creating rituals that reinforce your core narrative. And that means just checking in with yourself, okay? Asking yourself, how are you feeling? Considering all of the advice and input that you've received, taking a step back, sorting through it, using your filter so that you can still protect your authorship of your story. As you continue your journey, remember this powerful truth. You are the primary author of your story. You might serve many different roles, okay? And you might be characters within others' stories, but you are the primary author of your story, okay? Others might suggest edits, but you decide which one to accept. Your story deserves protection, not because it's fragile, but because it's precious and because of all the work that you've put in to create it. As we wrap up this series of the Lived Experiences Revealed, I want you to know that this isn't an ending. It's just a pause in this conversation. I'm taking some time. I'm going to be creating some fresh new content for our next series that's going to focus, of course, on how we can build our narratives and continue our journeys. In the meantime, I invite you to join me over at the Lived Experience podcast, where I feature guests who generally share their stories and the wisdom that they've gained. And that will be launching on June 18th. Okay, so that'll be season 2 of the Lived Experience podcast. Before we close, I want to share something that I believe with my whole heart, that stories heal. When we share our experiences, both the success and the challenges, we create a space for healing, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who hears them. And stories inspire. Every time someone shares how they've overcome an obstacle or they share their success, they light a path for others to follow. And of course, we're all here today. Stories connect in a world that can just continue to feel so divided. Stories remind us of our shared humanity. They bridge differences and they build understanding. Stories, when protected and honored, they're so valuable and they have the power to change not just our lives, but the world around us. I love to hear from you. What episode has resonated with you the most? What topics would you like to explore in the next season? And how do you plan to protect your story from outside influences? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to thank you again for being a part of this journey. Remember that your story matters, not just to you, but to all of us. Keep owning it, keep sharing it, keep transforming it, and most importantly, keep protecting it. Don't forget, Lived Experience Podcast drops June 18th. We're going to have some great guests on who are going to share their stories with us. Until we meet again, remember, stories heal, stories inspire, and stories connect. I'll see you all again soon.